I told you that the bends were like going up trails of a mountain, right? Where it's like you go for one way and then there's a switchback, and that's the second bend where you go up this way. So you're increasing your level of complexity really as you go up the bends. And so what we're going to do today is we're adding on to what we already have been talking about. We've been talking a lot about character and how to make sense of character. The anchor chart to how to think deeply about character is over there on the wall, and it will stay up there for you to refer to as you're working, right? So we've gone through all those things and talked about them many times. I'm starting a new anchor chart today, which is to investigate the influence of setting on characters. So this bend is going to add this layer of complexity to our thinking about characters. So we're not just looking at setting by itself. We're looking at how setting influences or exerts pressures on characters that cause them to respond in certain ways or behave in certain ways, right? So it's like the interaction of setting and character. And the first thing I want you to think about, which is something you probably haven't thought a lot about before, is that traditionally when we teach setting in English classes, you had to define what is setting. You've said the time and the place where a story happens, and the time period it happens, the year, right? It might be the season, for example. But setting is actually a lot more than that. Setting actually includes mood and atmosphere as much as it does physical place. So it's also an internal kind of atmosphere, the feeling that you get from a place, right? So we're going to be talking about that today, and I'm going to share with you a new piece by the same author, and this is a story called The Fight. It's also about the same character, Will, that we've been reading about. Remember Will from Popularity? He was in 4th grade in that story. This story is also about Will, but it takes place 4 years later. So think back to the Will you know from the last story, Popularity, and the things we learned about his character. Now, we're going to see Will again. So follow along with me and think along with me as we explore Will's character in this beginning section. It began with a basketball game. Mike Dichter and I went up for the same rebound, and I accidentally stuck my elbow in his chest. Then Mike stuck his elbow in my chest, pointed a finger at me, and told me to watch out. In those days, I had a reputation for toughness to maintain, so I told him that he better watch out, and on the next rebound, neither of us watched out, and both of us got elbows in the chest. Then we started shoving each other under the basket and pointing fingers and making threatening faces, which was fine with me because looking threatening was one of the things I did best. Before things could get out of hand, however, gym ended, and Mike and I glared at each other and went back to our respective homerooms. Talk for just a couple of seconds about the character that you see here. Oh. Okay, so I think you are all seeing parallels between the Will in the previous story and the Will here. He's still a lot of the same kind of guy in an older version, isn't he? So this time he still seems to be, I think you said he's still concerned about being popular, right? He's still worried about that. He's still worried about what people think of him appearing a certain way. He's concerned about his reputation. What did you say, Abigail? He's still stuck up, just like he was back in the other story. So, we've been thinking about character only, but now I want you to reread this section with me. So when we're rereading it, we're going to put on a new set of glasses, so to speak. We're going to view it through a new lens. This time I want you to view it through the lens of setting. So now you're looking for details that clue you in on what kind of a place is this? What kind of a place is this? And when we think about setting, this is a typical school. It doesn't seem very unusual or special in any way, right? And so, when we talk about setting in a lot of stories, if it's a science fiction story or if it's a historical fiction you know what? Setting is important in all stories, even if it at first seems like it's not. Okay? So look for the things about this setting that are unique and interesting. Okay? What kind of place is it? So here we go. It began with a basketball game. Mike Dichter and I went up for the same rebound, and I accidentally stuck my elbow in his chest. Then Mike stuck his elbow in my chest, pointed a finger at me, and told me to watch out. In those days, I had a reputation for toughness to maintain, so I told him he better watch out. And on the next rebound, neither of us watched out, and both of us got elbows in the chest. Then we started shoving each other under the basket and pointing fingers and making threatening faces, which was fine with me because looking threatening is one of the things I did best. Now turn and talk to your neighbor about what kind of place this is. Go. Okay, this is a little tricky work, and I think that you're not used to doing this kind of thinking. So you're used to thinking about character a lot more than you're used to thinking about this. So when I ask you what kind of a place is this, the answer isn't just, this is a gym class. That's obvious, we're in a gym class. This is a school, it's a middle school. Yes, we know that is true, but what kind of a gym class is it? What kind of a school is it? This is the kind of gym class where ... what? And I'm going to answer that for you. I think this is the kind of a gym class where things are pretty competitive. Like, people play games in this gym class, but they are serious about it. And it affects their reputation and how they're perceived by others, right? If you're not very good at sports, like me, I would have found this gym class really intimidating. I would have not liked it very much, because I wouldn't have been very good at the sports they were playing, and I probably would not have been highly valued as a member of the class. In fact, I get the sense that this is kind of a nasty set, a school in general. It's very, like, mean, almost. Is it? I don't know. I see a lot of behavior here that's very unsportsmanlike, don't you? So this seems to be the kind of place we are in, right? Would you add anything else to that? Turn to your neighbors and talk about anything else you noticed. Okay, give me something that you would add here. Uncontrolled. Uncontrolled, I like that. What's another one that you would add? Somebody else? Yes. Intense, yes, I heard that. That was good. Definitely intense. Anything else? Yeah. Rough, yeah, for sure. Okay, now you're doing the work that I want you to do. You see? Now you get it. The first time through I wasn't sure, but now you get it. So, let's keep reading, and let's keep looking at this setting. You ready? Things probably would have taken a peaceful turn if I hadn't walked home with Kevin Cox after school and told him that the next time Mike and I played basketball, I was really going to throw some elbows. And if Mike, didn't like it, I would fight him anytime, anywhere. I don't know why I said this. Perhaps I was thinking of the Mike I had known a year before. Perhaps I was thinking of the thin, gullible, good-natured Mike, who had since grown 4 inches, gained 15 pounds, and become as humorless and menacing as a drill sergeant. Kevin looked at me doubtfully. "Do you really think you can take it?" he asked me. Since Kevin had always been one of my most loyal and servile followers, I was astonished by his doubt in my physical prowess. I know I can take him, I said. He's 3 inches taller than you, Kevin said. So? He's really strong. I'm really strong. Kevin shrugged. Okay, he said, but I think Mike could take you. Now it was my turn to shrug. It was also my turn to lay a condescending hand upon Kevin's shoulder and leave him to ponder his absurd and traitorous notions. The next day, in school, everything proceeded as usual. I listened to teachers, took notes, fell asleep, made a few uncalled for remarks, and gazed at Denise Young's legs. During lunch, I was sitting at a table full of friends, talking and listening in my usual superior way, when I heard Mike Dichter say, "Hey, buddy." Somehow I knew he meant me. Somehow I also knew that all kinds of jigs were up, and that something momentous was going to happen. I turned to look at him. "I hear you want to fight me," he said. "That's right," he said. "I'll meet you after school." Oh, no, it's right. "I'll be there," I said. Then he walked away, and I discovered 2 interesting things about myself. The first was that the idea of fighting terrified me. And the second was that in moments of extreme fear, my body produced ice-cold sweat. Someone said something to me, and I smiled and nodded. Someone said something else to me, and I smiled and nodded at that too. Perhaps they were giving me advice. Perhaps they were telling me to stay low and lean with my left. I stood up without really knowing I was standing up and walked from the cafeteria to the playground. I had never felt so lonely or so frightened in my life. Somehow, I had taken a wrong turn and wound up in the wrong day, in the wrong body, with the wrong future. Somehow, in 3 hours, I was going to be in a real fight with real fists, and there was no way out of it. Now, I want you to think about how the setting is exerting pressure on our character. Can you try and talk about that for a minute? So, I'm hearing you say some interesting things. If you think about it, what we have to be asking is, why is Will doing the things he's doing? Does the setting that he's in have, the pressures he's under, have something to do with the choices he's making? And I think, yeah. I'm hearing you say, yeah, it is. He feels pressure to continue to be cool, to be tough, not to back down, to uphold his reputation as a popular, cool guy who doesn't get beat up easily, a tough kid, right? So because that's what the setting, that's what the school community values so highly, and he wants to be valued by that community, he feels pressure to be that. Even though, is he? He's not really that tough. I mean, when we look at it closely, he's frightened, he's lonely, he's taken a wrong turn, and he's afraid of being in a real fight with real fists, right? And there's something else that I noticed, and that I as a reader would have paid really close attention to on the previous page. Did you notice this? Let's look at it again. During lunch, I was sitting with a table of friends. So they're all sitting at lunchtime. They're talking and listening, and he's listening in his usual superior way. Okay, so he already thinks he's superior to everyone else. He's got this reputation he has to uphold. When I heard Mike Dichter say, "Hey, buddy," somehow I knew that he meant me. Somehow I also knew that all kinds of jigs were up. You have to know what that phrase means to make deeper sense of this. Does anyone know what it means when we say the jig is up? What does that mean? The act or the show is revealed. Okay, the secret or the stunt that you're trying to pull off has been revealed. Okay? You've been outed, so to speak, right? So he's no longer able to, he feels like he's not going to be able to pretend anymore. He's been faking it. And he sees now he's going to be, they're going to start seeing through him. because obviously, when this fight actually happens, what do you suspect? What is your prediction based on everything we've read so far? He's going to run away? Or, any other ideas? What do you think? He's going to get, he's going to get the, you know what, kicked out of him? Or he might be clever and get himself out of it with his brain, but probably not with his fists, right? Okay, so what I'd like you to do as you continue reading today is to try doing this kind of work in your own book. So I'm going to ask you to do something that you don't do, I know that you don't do very often at all. And that is, I want you to reread something. When we read the beginning of this piece, we read it first through the lens of character, but we read it again through the lens of setting. And when you read the same text with a different lens, it gives you an entirely different perspective on it. But you have to read it through that lens alone. It's very hard to read through many lenses at once, right? So what I want you to do today, I want you to go back to your desk and I want you to find an excerpt in your book. And it could be the beginning where the setting is first introduced. It could be a scene where you know setting is really important and impacts what's going on, what has a strong influence on the characters. And I want you to reread it very carefully. And I want you to look for pieces in there, lines in there, descriptions in there that help reveal how that setting is influencing the characters. How is that setting almost like a character itself, a force itself, a force on the characters, okay? And it doesn't matter if you have an important setting like in a fantasy book, or even more importantly, a setting like like that book, which is about guys in the Vietnam War, in Vietnam, on the battlefield. That would be some important setting, wouldn't it? But it also might be a book like, where's the girls? Like you girls have, Dairy Queen, right? Hold that up. Which is just a rural American small town setting, right? It's not anything special at first, but there are unique things about it that do influence the characters, right? So that's what we're looking for. Can you do it? We're going to read silently for about, we're going to have a good chunk of 20 minutes or so, rereading. And then I'm going to have you talk about what you've reread at the end. So if you want to take some notes or put some sticky notes in there while you're rereading, do it. Okay? Go.